All rise. Voivolve. The International Criminal Court is now in session. L'Audiència de la Cour Penal International, 8 of word. Please be seated. Voivolve.
Thank you very much. Court officer, please call the case.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Court officer, thank you, Mr. President. Situation in the Republic of Kenya in the case of the prosecutor versus William Samuel Ruto and Joshua Arap Sang, ICC 01090111. We are in open session.
Morning, Mr. President, Your Honours. For the prosecution, Anton Steinberg, with me, Lucio Garcia, Lorenzo Pugliatti, Yulia Nuzban, and Yasmina Suljanovic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honours. Wilfred Nderitu, Counsel for Victims, assisted by Mr. Ochlon Narantsetseg from the OPCV and Mr. James Mawira, Case Manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honours. For Mr. Sang, there is Mr. Sang himself, Rong Sin, Hona Lanham, Caroline Busman, Logan Hambrick, and myself, Your Honour. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of Mr. Ruto, who is absent with the court's consent this morning, myself, David Hooper, Ms. Jairaj, Miss Sullivan, Miss Morgan, and at the back, Miss Baggett. Thank you.
And we will now address the matter of protective measures application filed for the next witness, witness 405.
Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honours, that's correct, and I'll be taking that witness. For those arguments, I'd request that we go into private session.
Right. We will then go into private session to take the arguments on the protective measures for the witness.
Court officer, we are in open session, Your Honor.
The chamber will now rule on the application for protective measures. The prosecutor applied for in-court protective measures for this witness, comprising distortion of images of the witness to the public, voice distortion, facial distortion, as well as testimony in camera for limited sessions in order to protect the identity of the witness from disclosure to the public. The parties do not oppose the application. The Victims and Witnesses Unit added their support for the application. The chamber grants the measures as requested.
As the court pleases.
The witness will then be brought in for the testimony. The shades will come down so that the witness will be ushered into the courtroom.
Court officer, we are in open session, Your Honor.
Thank you. Witness, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us in our work of looking for the truth about what happened and who might have been responsible for the post-election violence in Kenya in 2007 and 2008. As you join us, I want to reassure you that this is your courtroom. Please do feel entirely comfortable in it, in helping us to do our work. In doing our work, you will have to endure a number of questions. That is how the work is done. The prosecution, who have called you as their witness, will begin those questioning by asking you questions in examination in chief. When they finish, the defense counsel may take turns asking you questions as well. I say may, because it is not in every instance that an opposing party cross-examines a witness, but it is their right to do so if they choose to do so. So they may be asking you questions in cross-examination. Mr. Hooper is representing Mr. Ruto, who's one of the accused. Mr. Kiginkatwa is representing Mr. Sang, who's also one of the accused. They may take turns asking you questions. When they're done, Mr. Nderitu, who represents the victims in the case, may also have questions to ask you if the chamber grants him permission to ask you questions. And the prosecution may once again ask you questions in re-examination from any of the, if any matter arises that is new to them, from the questions that the defense counsel and the victim's counsel may ask you. So the matter is lots of questions. Hopefully there will not be too many, but there are enough for you to have taken the time to come here to assist us. Please do listen carefully to these questions. Very carefully understand the question that is asked of you, and then do your best to answer those questions truthfully. If you do not remember, do not be shy to say so, that you do not remember. If you do not know the answer, again, it is not expected that any human being knows everything. So do not be shy to say that. But if the question is not clear and you need to have the question repeated, again, feel free to ask for that to be done. The whole point is that for you to help us in our work, we want to make sure that the answer you give us comes from your own understanding of the events, and of course, proper understanding of the question that has been asked of you. And then answer that question briefly, but comprehensively enough that all the information is there, and then stop. Sometimes the best answer to a question is yes or no. And if that is the answer that is called for, please answer it in that way. The lawyers know what they're asking of you, and it is for them to ask you follow-up questions if they need more information from you. Try not to be so comprehensive as to you think the answer you've given is not enough. There may be something more to add to make it better. If you can avoid that, please do. The lawyers are here. They will know that they haven't quite got the answer they're looking for, and they will ask you more questions. So just wait for the questions and answer the questions briefly and to the point. In answering the questions as well, especially during the time for cross-examination, try not to take these things personally. the lawyers are doing their work. It is often the case that when people watch courtroom stories on television, they see lawyers, too aggressively attacking witness. That doesn't happen in this courtroom because the lawyers don't do it generally, and we will not let them do it. So it is our job to make sure that witnesses who come are treated very fairly. Just always concentrate on the answer you will give to the question, rather than worry about whether you are being treated fairly in court. We will take that job of ensuring that you are treated fairly. It is a job we take seriously, and we will do it. So concentrate on your answer and give it to us. Now, there's some matter of logistics that we also stress to witnesses who come to testify. There are members of our team who are in the booth, sealed compartment up there. The interpreters and court reporters, they are not inside the courtroom because there's a glass wall that separates you from them. They can only hear you through the microphone. So it is important at all times to ensure that two people are not speaking at the same time, because when that happens, they will not be able to make out who is saying what and what's being said. So it's always important to ensure that at all times there's only one person who is speaking on the microphone. Now, they are interpreting as you speak and as the lawyers speak. It is often the case that even when I finish speaking, they are still finishing up the interpretation a few seconds after me. So it means if somebody else starts speaking immediately after me, that may also create that interference on the microphone. So for that reason, we encourage witnesses to pause for about 5 seconds to ensure that completion of the interpretation has happened before the next speaker starts speaking. Oftentimes it may seem slow, but that's how it has to happen. And also, when you finish answering a question, and because of this 5-second rule, the lawyer would have to stop before starting his own question. He will have to wait. It is often the case that the witness may have forgotten why the lawyer is waiting and may think that he or she has not given all the answer and then keeps talking. That's not why the lawyer stopped. The lawyer stopped just to observe that pause before asking you the question. So keep all that in mind while you answer. It may be a lot to keep in mind, but do your best to remember what you can. I will also be reminding you from time to time about these things. Thank you very much. And Mr. Puliati will begin the questioning.
Mr. President, I'm going to open my questioning, as we do with all witnesses, with questions about the witness's personal background. So for that purpose, I'd request that we please enter private session. 5 to 10 minutes for those questions, I would estimate.
Just before that starts, I assume my friend's going to obviously seek to rely on the protected information document. And he nods in agreement. And I dare say you, the judges, have a copy of it in front of you. The last page is headed CV, personal information, which the prosecution...
You mean page 5?
Yes, indeed. Page 5 and just over to page 6, which the prosecution were good enough to serve on us yesterday or so, and which we've seen, and we've no objection to that whatsoever. However, if you cast your eyes over page 2 and 3 and 4, that comprises a a list of places and persons. There are 19 locations, and there are 33 persons listed on those pages, being a total, therefore, of 52 references by number pseudonym. With each witness, it appears that the number of locations and persons has increased. I think 52 is the largest number that we've had. And my concern is simply this. We didn't have an opportunity of seeing this literally till a moment ago, is that it can amount to a trail.
1 second, Mr.
Certainly.
Hooper. Can you put that thing down, please? Thank you. I will switch off my microphone and speak loudly, so I'll tell you why.
I take it through the cameras,
Yes.
or something like that.
Yes,
We're
that's correct.
obviously being watched at all times. Right. 52 are on that list. That's, I think, the largest number that we've had. And I was saying that our concern is simply this, that it amounts to a trail through a witness's evidence, this witness or any other witness, a signposted trail through the witness's evidence, a prompt. It can serve that purpose. Now, not only that, but if we're going to have a witness with 52 references, locations and persons that are going to require treatment through reference by number, we're also going to have an inarticulate transcription of the evidence. If it's really necessary to have so many, then it's probably better done in a closed session than in an open session. But in any event, we'd prefer, except for perhaps key references, very personal to the individual witness, as his home or whatever it might be, relatives' homes, that sort of thing, we'd prefer, and persons as well, but other people that feature in his evidence, for example, we'd prefer the witness refers to independently entirely of this kind of document. And once he's referred to it, perhaps in private session, we follow the practice that, in fact, I think you suggested earlier on with a witness, where that name becomes added to the document. And we can then all follow and understand it. In that way, we get, as it were, the witness's in-court account, and not some perhaps earlier account with earlier references prompted to him by a document such as this. 52 is excessive. That's my submission.
Mr. President, if I may, just very briefly, of course, first of all, I'm grateful to my learned friend for the indication that the curriculum vitae is not in dispute. That's very helpful. As for the comments regarding the names and locations on the protected information sheet, first of all, of course, we're complying with a court order to prepare these in order to assist the proceedings, and we prepare them for the purposes of attempting to facilitate as much of this in public as possible. In addition, whilst this isn't the shortest public information sheet that this court has had before it, it's as streamlined as we could make it. It's certainly not comprehensive. This witness went to a number of locations and had a number of interactions with a number of individuals, and certainly in its current form, it's what we call the streamlined version, because there was we've sought to to cut it down as much as possible. Of course, if it's a matter of doing more in private session, then that can be done as well. But we prepare these, as we have all of them, with the aim of trying to have as much in public as possible.
Mr. Hooper, I sympathize with your concern, of course. You're worried about more or less bringing in previous consistent statement into the testimony, if that's a concern. But there comes a point where we have to strike a balance. There has been repeated sentiment from the defense, and it is more than that. That as much of the hearing be done in public as possible. And the point of the protected information sheet is to avoid too much being done in the private session, so that with the protected information sheet, the witness is able to testify in public as much as possible. But if it comes to the point of, say, oh, let's go into the private session and put on record the substantive information that appears on the PIS, and then go back and start referring to the PIS, then in public it may defeat the purpose of the publicity of the hearing. That was the point of the PIS. So that is a purpose, and it's always a trade-off in these things at some point. Isn't that the case? So we will go into private session so that Mr. Pugliati will start off the examination of the witness. Keeping in mind, of course, Mr. Hooper's acceptance of the CV of the witness. We've not heard from Mr. Keegan-Catwell, of course, whether he too accepts the CV.
Perhaps I could just put on the record that our learned friends for Mr. Sang had contacted us in advance and stated they didn't object to the curriculum vitae.
So keeping that in mind, we'll go into private session.
Mr. President, we confirm that we have indicated that we do not contest the personal information contained. May I also seek your leave to have my colleague Logan Humphrey conduct the testimony of this witness?
Thank you.
Nous sommes en audience publique, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, we're in public session.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pugliati, please continue.
Mr. Witness, you may have heard the court officer. We've now entered into a public session. I'd like to ask you, at the time of the 2007 election in December 2007, what was the population approximately of Yamumbi?
More than 2,000.
And how far approximately is Yamumbi from Eldoret town centre?
Between 5 kilometers and 6.
And at the time of the 2007 elections, which ethnic groups were living in Yamumbi?
Predominantly Kikuyu.
You say predominantly. Were there other groups there as well?
Yeah, but a small population of other communities.
And what small communities were those?
There were some few Turkanas, few lawyers, few Kisis. Those are the ones that were there, apart from the majority Kikuyu.
Just for the transcript, did you say, I heard you say Turkana?
Yes.
So I believe the spelling, Mr. President, is Turkana.
Yes.
Yes. Witness, remember our rule of the pause. Try counting to 5 in your mind. That is a safe guide to the 5 seconds. And also, I needed to point something out to you now that we're in the public session. There's a button in front of you, behind the microphone to your right. That button, that contraption has 2 buttons, red and green. Now, you see it's lit up red. You see the button I'm talking about? When that is lit up red, it tells you we're in the public session. When we're in the private session, it is green. Green meaning all clear to talk about identifying information when it is green only. But when it is red, means be careful, do not give information that may reveal who you are, because the public are part of the proceedings at that point, when it's in the red mode. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Witness, you've said that in Yamumbi that there were Kikuyus and so also a few Luyas, Kisis, and Turkanas. Were there any Kalenjin in Yamumbi itself?
I don't remember any Kalenjin in Yamumbi at all.
And what about nearby to Yamumbi?
There were neighboring farms that were predominantly occupied by Kalenjins.
And can you tell the court the names of those predominantly Kalenjin farms?
Kapngetwin Farm, Simat Farm, Kapteldon Farm, Kapseret Farm. Those are the ones I can remember for now.
I'm afraid, Mr. Witness, for the court record, we're going to have to spell those. The first one that you said, could you please spell that?
K-A-P-N-G-E-T-U-N-Y. Second one, Simat, S-I-M-A-T. Third one, Kapteldon, K-A-P-T-E-L-D-O-N. The other one, Kapseret, K-A-P-S-E-R-E-T.
Now, witness, very briefly, without going into too much detail, can you please explain to the court how relations were in the Yamumbi area between the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins?
Before the elections, or before the campaign period, the relationship was okay, because Kikuyus and Kalenjins would do business together, would visit each other quite well. That is before the elections of 2007.
And which was the most popular political party in Yamumbi at that time?
It was the Party of National Unity, otherwise known as PNU.
And was there one group or groups that were particularly supportive of the PNU party?
Yes, the Kikuyus were predominantly supportive of the Party of National Unity, PNU.
And the other main party was the ODM, was it not? The Orange Democratic Movement.
The other party, yes, was ODM.
And which group or groups, if any, were mostly or mainly supportive of the ODM?
The Kalenjins, the Luos, the Luyas.
You said that prior to the election, relations were generally okay. Did they remain consistently okay throughout the periods before the elections?
At some times there used to be small incidences involving maybe stealing of livestock or livestock moving from Yamumbi to the Kalenjin lands, and it would spark some kind of animosity. But it never escalated to become a huge problem.
Now, you said that there would be animosity. Can you think of any examples of how this animosity may have been expressed or communicated?
Yes, we would see groups of young people coming over to Yamumbi at the border to complain that when livestock has been stolen, we would always say maybe it is them who have stolen, and then it will become an argument. And mostly would involve the police and the administration, and it would be sorted out.
And were there any other incidents in Yamumbi that you recall regarding animosity?
I remember sometimes in 2004 or thereabout, there was one gentleman by the name John who was murdered, and the Kikuyus from Yamumbi suspected that he was murdered by a Kalenjin because his body was mutilated and thrown into a river. And then the Kikuyus went to see, and we called the police, someone called the police, and a Kalenjin was arrested in connection with that murder. So it became a point of conflict between the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins, because there were demonstrations by Kikuyus to protest against the murder of that gentleman. The reason for that, we were actually never told the conclusion of the case. We never get to understand who really was responsible for the murder, because that person who was arrested was later acquitted.
Okay, so that was in 2004. If I bring you forward a little bit closer to the elections, around 2006, do you recall anything happening in that year in Yamumbi?
No.
And also, around this time, were there any large events or large gatherings taking place in the Eldoret area that you recall?
Around 2006, yes. There were political rallies, which I never attended. But I remember in 2000 repeat the question.
I was asking about any large events or large gatherings in the Eldoret area that you might remember.
Yes, I remember around 2006, I attended a ceremony that was supposed to make William Ruto a Kalenjin elder around the middle of 2006. That was a huge gathering.
You say around the middle of 2006. Do you have any idea what month that may have been?
No, must have been around the middle of 2006. I can't remember the exact month.
And what was the atmosphere like in Yamumbi at the time that this ceremony took place?
It was calm. There was no bad incident.
Now, you said this was a very large event. Did you attend this event?
I did.
Approximately, you don't have to be exact, but approximately how many people were at the ceremony?
There were in thousands. There were in thousands, probably 5,000 and over.
And where did it take place? Where was the ceremony held?
At the Eldoret Sports Club.
Just for the benefit of those who may not be familiar with Eldoret, is that close to the Eldoret Showgrounds in Eldoret?
Yes, it's toward the direction of the Eldoret Showground.
Now, you said that the audience was very large. Which was the primary ethnic group in attendance at this ceremony?
The Kalenjin.
And do you know where they would have come from to attend this?
They came from all over Rift Valley because I heard them mentioning some came from Kericho, Nandi, others from a place called Moiben, Tarber. Generally, I got to understand that they had come from the entire Rift Valley.
And how would they have arrived from across the Rift Valley at the Eldoret Sports Club?
There were many vehicles parked at the sports ground. And while I was going, I also saw people coming in lorries, others coming in tractors that had trailers, others came on their bicycles, and those who came close from around came by foot.
I just want to make sure the record is clear. Witness, did I hear you say Kericho a moment ago?
Yes.
That would be
at line 22.
Yes, 21. 21.
21, indeed. Now, witness, do you know if this ceremony was being broadcast in any way on television or radio or any other reporting of it?
There were cameras I saw, so I assumed it was being broadcast.
Mr. President, if we could go into private session, I just have two questions.
Private session.
Officer, we are in public session, Mr. President.
Mr. Pouliot, please proceed.
Now, Mr. Witness, when you arrived at the Eldoret Sports Club to attend this ceremony, what time was that approximately?
I'm right, I arrived around 11.
Now, Did you attend alone or were you with other people?
From my location, I traveled alone to the highway. In fact, I had not purposed to attend that ceremony because I was doing business, so I did not see the reason why I should attend. I was not convinced by my friends. But when I arrived...
1 second. Council's question to you now was whether you attended alone or with other people. I think it's enough to answer whether you attended alone or with other people. If council sees the need to ask you a follow-up question, he will.
With other people.
And witness, just answer yes or no to this question. These people that you attended with, are they the people that we were referring to a few moments ago?
One of them.
Now, the witness did say he may have been caught in the pause, but the witness did say he attended with other people. The record needs to reflect that. Please proceed, Mr. Pugliati.
Mr. Wiss, can you tell us what is the Eldoret Sports Club typically used for?
It's used for sports, but there's also, it's a club of members whom I really do not know what they engage in, what business, but it's largely a field for sports.
And when you attended this ceremony, were there speeches that day?
No.
And what people were participating in the ceremony, not in the audience, but in the event itself?
There were many leaders, most of whom were members of parliament at that time.
Were there any other types of leaders present at the ceremony?
I remember there was also some traditional religious leaders.
Traditional leaders from which community?
The Kalenjin.
Now, as regards the politicians that you say were there, do you recall some politicians who may have been there, some members of parliament?
Yes, I do.
Could you tell the court those that you recall?
I recall seeing Franklin Bett, who I think was a member of parliament at that time. I also recall seeing a Mr. Lagat, who was also a member of parliament from a constituency called Eldoret East. I also recall seeing Lina Kilimo, who was a member of parliament from a constituency in Marakwet.
Court officer, we're in open session, Your Honor.
Now, witness, I'm going to show you a video. We're not going to show you the whole video, just some excerpts from it. But I'll show you those excerpts. I'd like you to watch carefully, and then I'll ask some questions following that. The video I'm referring to is Ken OTP 0033 0102. In fact, this is already in evidence, Mr. President.
Public or private material?
It's confidential material, so we would appreciate it if it remained that way. Mr. President, I misspoke. It is not. It's public.
I thought so. But please, court officer.
I'll just place on the record the exhibit number that we're dealing with here. It's EVD T OTP 00037. And as in the manner that we've proceeded with witnesses before, I propose to show a short extract, and we'll provide the witness with the translation that's been produced and ask him to read the translation and comment on the veracity or accuracy thereof. Segments will be short, Mr. President.
And is the transcript in your bundle?
It is in our bundle, and it's the transcript is bundle tab 9, translation tab 10. And once again, I'd seek the assistance of the court officer in putting the translation before the witness. We have a fresh copy here. That said, the first segment that we're going to display doesn't have any speaking. Witness, you can leave the translation aside for the moment, because the first clip I'm going to show you is not a spoken clip. For the record, we're showing from time of the video 14 minutes 50 seconds to 15 minutes 55 seconds. I don't know if the image is now broadcast to all in the court.
Mheshimiwa William Ruto anaingia kwa uzuri kwa ile nafasi pale. Mheshimiwa kutoka sehemu hiyo ya pavilion wale wote
Now, witness, can you just tell the court where that is in the video?
That is Eldoret Sports Club.
And the gentleman arriving in the Jeep?
William Ruto.
It's a Pugliati private session for a second again.
Nous sommes en audience publique, monsieur.
Court officer, we are in open session, Your Honor.
Witness, is that the ceremony or the event that you attended in 2006?
Yes.
The next segment is from timestamps 57 minutes and 4 seconds to 58 minutes and 34 seconds.
Ni wengi, asanteni. Ni mingi, asanteni sana. Mimi nimetoka.
Witness, do you see the man on the screen?
Yes.
Do you recognize him? If so, can you tell the court who he is?
I recognize him. He's called Kenneth Marende.
And if you recall, at this time, what was his position?
He was a member of parliament for a constituency in the western part of Kenya.
I believe for the record that Marende is M-A-R-E-N-D-E. If you could open the translation in front of you, and I direct you to page 22. Tell me when you have it.
I have it.
And then if you follow the numbers down the side to line 739, if you would.
Got it.
Now, this is a translation into English that the prosecution has produced, and I'd like you, when you listen to the next minute or so, to tell at the end, to tell us whether the English translation is correct or not. Do you understand? And for the record, the translation is also in evidence. It's Prosecution Exhibit 39. The accompanying transcript preceding that is 38, Prosecution Exhibit 38. Okay, please watch the video now, witness.
Just sorry, one, I hope not too inconvenient interruption, but did this witness hear this gentleman speak? Not clear what the position is. He's told us he was at the meeting. Did he see this gentleman there? Did he hear him speak?
It's easily put. Witness, when you were attending the ceremony and you saw speeches, was this one of the speeches you saw, if you recall Mr. Marende speaking?
I don't recall.
If you could watch the video now.
Emuhaya constituency ambayo iko Western Province. Kwa hivyo nimekuja hapa kwa niaba ya watu wa Western Province, Waluhya wote, nikiwa pamoja na ndugu yangu Musalia Mudavadi kuwasalimia. Sasa mpunge mkono mnisalimie pia na mimi. Asanteni sana. Pili, nimekuja hapa kushuhudia kutawazwa kwa rafiki yangu William Ruto kuwa mzee wa Rift Valley wa Kalenjin. sisi tunamwamini na ni sawasawa, mmefanya vizuri, tunawashukuru. Tatu, kuna wengine wanasema kuwa Bwana William Ruto asisimame kuwa candidate wa presidency. Lakini nataka kuwaeleza hivi, mimi nikiwa mwanasheria wa miaka mingi na ujuzi wa kutosha, katiba ya nchi hii na sheria zote zinayoambatana nayo zinasema kuwa Mkenya yeyote aliyekomaa ambaye amezidi miaka 18 ana uhuru wa kusimama kuwa president. Na Bwana William Ruto vile mimi ninavyojua amekomaa. Kwa hivyo hakuna kitu kitazuia yeye kusimama.
Can we pause?
Yuko uhuru kusimama.
Mr. Pugliati, looking at the witness while this video is being played, not that he's done anything wrong, I'll make that clear. But in light of Mr. Hooper's observation earlier, what do you intend this witness to do so that, assuming the court agrees that may be done, then that is done efficiently?
We're, of course, hoping to be as efficient as possible. This video is replete with various speeches. We sought to just show the court two, this one and another one. And at that juncture, I'd say I gave the time stamps for the other video for this speech, so I'll correct the record in a moment. But we don't want to show him the whole speeches. We just want to show two speeches and the first few moments of those speeches, and then have the witness confirm for the record that the translations are accurate, and then we'll make submissions on that later at a later date.
All right. Is the purpose then to have the witness assist us with translation, or is the purpose to see if, after listening to the speech, to see if that jogs the witness's memory about whether he heard the speech?
It's the former, not the latter.
All right. In that case, that's why I said I was looking at the witness. The witness was looking at the video screen while the thing is being played. Perhaps the witness should be looking at the transcript. Isn't that it, or so that he can indeed verify that what he's hearing in Swahili is in line with what he's reading on the transcript?
Indeed, we have a copy of the transcript. We can furnish him with that. He can read that whilst the video is playing, if the court doesn't mind going back to the beginning of this speech, and then he can confirm the translation or not, as the case may be, if that's how the court's minded to proceed.
If this witness is being used as the translator or interpreter of these speeches, then he should be impressed with the fact that he's not being asked to tell us whether it's generally correct. He's being asked whether it is each and every word accurately translated from one language into the other. So it's accuracy, word by word, not generality. And may I say, I've doubts whether really it's been established that this witness is appropriately equipped to provide the court with that technical service. If we're talking about accuracy, we're talking about word-by-word accuracy, I doubt this witness, with respect to him, is equipped for that. It's not his job.
Yeti?
Well, my understanding is the language is Swahili, and that the witness is equipped to tell the court whether the speech being shown on the screen is accurately portrayed in Swahili in writing in front of him and in English as well in the translation.
The point, of course, is you may need to establish that expertise on the part of the witness on the record. You know what questions to ask the witness in that regard?
Yes.
Then we move on.
Witness, do you speak Swahili?
Yes, I do.
Okay, could you just describe for the court your level of Swahili, please?
I communicate fluently.
And if you were to listen to a video in Swahili, would you be able to see if any transcription, any written Swahili was correct or not?
I would.
And if you were to then see a written translation in English, would you be equipped to assess whether the English is correct or not?
Yes.
With the court's leave, I'll proceed.
But how do you do it? Are you going to have the witness, now talking about the practicalities of it, are you going to have the witness listen to the video and then read the Swahili transcript and then come to the English translation of the transcript? Is that how you seek to proceed? Or would you rather have the witness listen to the tape and track it on the English translation? I don't know what you're hoping to do here.
The hope was to do it with the English translation, and we note that that's how it was done with previous witnesses, with the same video, in fact, that it's a language that the witness understands and is able to comment on confidently, and that having watched it in the original language, one that they understand, they would then be directed to the English translation. And so we were following previous procedure here, but if the court's minded to do it differently, we're also...
Well, proceed.
I note the time as well. We could keep going, or...
Yes. We will take our morning break, and we'll come back at 11:30, and then we'll continue the exercise at that point. The blinds will come down, and the